This is Barry Mathis, the voice of real estate, and with me in the studio today is your treat, Peter Harris. Peter Harris is the co-author of Commercial Real Estate Investing for Dummies, and he's no dummy, but he wrote that book, and that's awesome. And then he also has got an ebook out, Peter Harris, Commercial Real Estate for Beginners. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, it's a book, Barry, that I wrote for people who are just beginning to get into commercial real estate. It's basically a book. It's not a cover-all of everything. It's just a book for beginners, just to get a feel for what commercial real estate is.
Oh, that's awesome. And how can somebody get a hold of that book?
Well, they can go to my website. They can go to commercialpropertyadvisors.com. They can go on to Amazon.com and look for the book there.
Commercial Real Estate for Beginners. Guys, I think you're going to like it a lot. I found both his books instantly and got them both delivered to me, and I loved it. I finished one last night, read it from pretty much cover to cover, and I thought it was a good read, and I really enjoyed it. We're going to jump right into our target today because we really want to talk to you today. Our theme today is bigger, better. And so that's always been kind of a tongue-in-cheek play on the words there. But is bigger better? Is it better to do small things over and over again, or is it better to do something bigger with excellence? And you get two camps on this. Have you heard this debate for quite some time, Peter?
Oh, quite some time. You know, the biggest difference between single-family homes and apartments or commercial would be if you were to have a single-family home and the person moves out, how much rent do you have coming in?
Right.
Zero. And with if he instead of going into a single-family home or to two single-family homes, maybe he can go into an 8-unit complex. He can actually have 2 or 3 people leave and still have enough cash flow to pay all the bills.
What are your thoughts on fourplexes both versus going ahead and stepping up to 6 or 8 or 16?
Well, my first thought is the amount of work that you do to purchase a duplex, triplex, or fourplex is the same amount of work to buy an 8, 20, or 24plex. So
okay.
That's why, number one, you should consider that.
Okay, just consolidating the labor, buying bigger, and still getting the same return.
Exactly.
Awesome. Have you found differences in the quality of the properties, or is it all over the place?
It's all over the place, Barry. You know, there's several things you have to consider. One is you should start in your own backyard. You are very familiar with the trends in your neighborhood and where rents are going, where rents are not going, vacancies. So you should start in your own neighborhood, and from there get a foundation of how the numbers work.
Okay, good. Tell me a little, you know, when you get up into those 5+, for those of you who don't know, when you are buying real estate, there's a big difference between 4 and under and 5 and over. That really is the dividing line. A lot of the real estate laws are written to where they apply only to 1 to 4 residential units. And then when you get into 5+, you've got a whole different set of rules. Some of those real estate laws don't apply anymore, and then also your financing changes. At 5+, it really becomes more of a conversation about the income of the property rather than at 4 under, it's really more about the credit of the individual buying. So let's talk a little bit about that. What's the difference between that income of the property valuation versus somebody that's buying and it's based all on their own credit?
Well, one of the main reasons why I really enjoy commercial, Barry, is because, well, let me compare this to residential. In residential, it's very emotional, very emotional. With commercial, it's all about the numbers. You know, in commercial, we focus on the deal, and we basically don't fall in love with the actual home or the property. We fall in love with the deal, with the numbers. So it's a numbers game, and we remove the emotion. And that's one of the main reasons why I jumped into commercial, because residential was just a bit too emotional for me.
Well, you know, I've had some people that work with these bigger numbers, and sometimes there's a big emotion, fear. Fear is the biggest emotion. So yeah, you're not really emotional about the house, whether it's pretty or whether the house is this or that. But fear becomes an issue at these higher levels. I mean, what do you say to somebody that, like even my client, you know, he's going to be taking this jump. That's going to be a big jump because he was only prepared to spend X amount, but now he's going to have to really leverage himself much higher than what he would have to get up into this higher price range.
You know, Barry, it comes down to education, right? Education, and that's my passion, to teach people how to do this business. And number one is to get educated on what you want to jump into. Get educated on how apartments work. You know, apartments are pretty simple. Basically, the income comes in, you pay the bills, you pay the mortgage, and you see what's left. That's pretty much it, you know? And so that way we can remove the emotion and remove the fear. So fear is caused by just a lack of knowledge.
That is true. A lot of times, once you've done something, you ever drive somewhere and when you're on the way there, it takes so much longer to get there than it did to get home.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, it's the same amount. It's the same number of miles. But when you haven't driven there before, it just feels like it was a longer trip. But on the way home, you're just like you don't even remember the trip home.
Well, Barry, let me tell you this, is one commercial deal can dramatically change your financial life forever and your kids' life.
Tell us, I read in one of your books about a gentleman named Joe, and I think he had bought a property. Do you remember the story I'm talking about?
Sure do. I spoke with him yesterday.
Yeah, tell us about that.
He's doing bigger and better things. Well, Joe was an advertising executive in New York City, and he contacted me, and he saw the writing on the wall. He says, Peter, in New York City, an advertising agency, once you reach the age of 40, you're pretty much obsolete.
Oh, wow.
And I'm 37. He's 37 years old.
I've been obsolete for a while.
And he says it's time to do something. So he owned a few single-family homes, and to get where he wanted to go financially, he knew that purchasing another 3 single-family homes is not going to get him there. So he wanted to get into the apartment business. He wanted to go basically from owning 3 single-family homes to owning 30 units. That was his goal. Well, after working maybe 3 months with me, going through the foundations and reaching out and creating relationships, he realized he needs to do 100 plus units.
Wow.
So exactly. So within, I started working with him in January of last year, and then by July, he closed on a 168 unit apartment complex.
Hold on a second. Let me make sure I back that up because I'm a little bit slow on the up. You said that you worked with him. You started working with him. He owned 3 or so properties, and you started working with him. His goal was to get to 30, and this was in January.
Yes.
And then in July, he was owning on 100 properties.
168 unit apartment complex.
Wow. That's big.
Yep.
That's big time.
He learned how to evaluate, how to create the relationships, how to do due diligence, how financing works. So, and how probably the most important thing is management. He learned the management part.
And I was going to ask that. I mean, how do you go about? I had 300 units under management at one time, and those were single families. So you can imagine how much work that was. And I had staff to help me, and they were great. And that was a real pain. Matter of fact, I believe my wife told me that if I ever do that again, she's going to leave me. And I think she means it too. I guess I turn into a different person when I'm managing all those properties. So how does that work? I mean, you seem like a pretty nice guy. Most of the property managers, frankly, I've met, one of the qualifications is that you're not a pretty nice guy. I mean,
well, the beauty of commercial, for example, what Joe did, right? So Joe had the option of purchasing, 168 single-family homes. But he didn't. He bought one 168 unit apartment complex. And what that does is he doesn't have 168 roofs to handle. He doesn't have 168 lawns to mow. He has one roof. He has one lawn to mow. So efficiencies. He has 3 employees on the property. He has a person in the office. He has 2 maintenance people. He has a part-time person leasing up everything. So he has a system in place.
That's incredible. And I want to tell you guys a little bit, if you think, well, this is not for me, this is only people with lots and lots of money, I got to tell you, you could start anywhere and you'll get there. You just got to start going down a different path than the one you were on yesterday. Because I'm telling you, if you go down the path you're on today or yesterday without making a change, you're not going to arrive at a new direction. That's all there is to it.
Amen.
So if you have a new direction that you're trying to get to, you're going to have to do something different. Now, I'm not even going to sit here and try to tell you that what we're talking about is the only thing to do different. I try on this show to bring you guys a lot of different options. There's a lot of ways to get to the same place, but you guys got to try something different than what you did yesterday. Peter, if somebody's looking up your information, give out your website again.
Commercialpropertyadvisors.com.
All right, that'd be awesome if you can go there.